welcome back to our pet parent education segment. My name is Mary Rocha, for those of you that are unaware or don't know. And today we are doing our little education segment on puppies. Specifically, we'll get into the grooming of puppies later on. But for now, we are just going to talk about kind of what to expect with puppies and different things to look for when getting a puppy. I did mean to film this with our little puppy at my work, but as I was thinking it over, I realized filming this video with a puppy on a table is probably not the best idea. So even next week, or not next week, in 2 weeks when we do curly coats, we'll probably film segments of it on the table with her, and then the rest will be me talking here. But we'll see how she does when we get there with her being on the table for long periods of time. And we'll talk a little more about that later and why puppies don't always do so good on the table. But anyways, I also meant to film this at my work as well. But I got overbooked the week that I was originally going to film it. And then the next week, me and my family were sick. And then this last week is spring break here. So we have been totally overbooked at work because there's a lot of families that book their dogs and then they want them groomed and cleaned up for when they pick them up, which I understand. I would want that too. But because of that, we have been very overbooked, me and our other groomer. So yeah, that is why I had no time to film. So now we are here again. And this is actually the second time I filmed this. I filmed it before, but I was going back to edit it, and I realized I was really kind of chatty and very just talkative, and so we're gonna try to condense things a little bit today. And I was also still recovering from my cold, so I had a cough like half the time and it was not fun. Okay, but that being said, let's get into puppies. So we recently got our little puppy. Her name is Arulin, full name Princess Arulin, but we call her Rue for short. She is a standard poodle apricot color. Not that I cared about the color, but that's just the color she turned out, which we love. She is absolutely gorgeous and just so much fun and full of energy. Right now, she is at my work. She's living there for a little bit and participating in their puppy preschool activity. And so during the day, she gets to play with some puppies and learn some manners. And then she gets to stay there overnight and, all that. But it's very fun because I still get to see her when I go into work and give her some love and attention and train her, especially on the grooming table, because as much as I love her and she is always going to be one of our, family members and pets, we did primarily get her for my work so that I can learn to groom different cuts on her. So she does need to be really good on the grooming table. But anyways, that's where our puppy is at right now. Yeah, but let's just get into general puppies. So first of all, when we're talking about puppies, I always want people to know that you want to be ready when you get a puppy. I know that especially from around October to December, everyone wants to get a puppy. They want to get them for Christmas for their families, and that's awesome. And we love that people are making these new additions to their families, especially the cute little floof balls that puppies are. But you need to be ready to get one because bringing the cute little puppy in, the little snippets you see on Instagram where they're running around and they're playing and they're all cute, or they're super tired and all cuddled up on the couch or whatever, those are just little snippets of puppy's life. And really, when you bring a puppy into your home, it's like having a toddler again. You have to watch them constantly because, well, one, you need to potty train them. And then two, you want to make sure that they don't have access to all your rooms, because otherwise they're going to chew everything up. So especially if you have a piece of furniture you really like in one room, that is wood, or even if it's not wood, if it's fabric or pleather, you don't want to let them in that room or around that furniture, or you want to just be watching them very closely when they are there, because they will chew on everything. It's like my baby right now, she's starting to teeth, she wants to put everything in her mouth. It's also a way that they learn, them and babies at the same time. They learn in a very similar way where they want to put everything in their mouth to learn what it is, what it tastes like. Is it edible? Is it not? And then puppies around 4 to 6 months, they start like teething. Again, where they'll lose their puppy teeth or their milk teeth, as they call them, and then their adult teeth will come in. Generally, that stops, from what I have been reading and seeing, around 8 months. We will see with the Rulin when that stops, so that will be fun. But generally, if you get a puppy around 6 months, which is very hard to do if you're getting from a breeder, that I think personally is the best time to get them, because you can still have a little bit of that fun puppy spunk, but they're at a very better, like, teachable age. So if you do get a puppy, if you can just make it to the 6-month point, I promise that is when it gets really good. That's when we got Chani, actually, was when she was 6 months. We got BB when she was a year, and then my previous dog, Riley, we got her at about 6 months as well. And you still, like I said, you get some of that fun puppy phase still, but also they're adult enough or grown enough that they can learn really easily. They can hold their pee for a long time, so you don't have to worry like super much about potty training. Obviously, potty training still, it's always going to be a thing, but it's better. So that's the good side. But yeah, a lot of people do get dogs because they want like the Instagram photo or whatever. At least here in Utah, that's why a lot of people get it. They want the cute little floofy Instagram dog, or they just want the cute little foofball that's gonna play all the time. The reality is, puppies are, like I said, they're like toddlers, they're like babies. They do play and explore, and they're little, they're little toddlers, little demons. They go and they chew on everything, and then they sleep a lot of the time too. So that's that. You do want to be ready. Make sure you're in a spot where you really do have all the time and attention to put into this dog so they can be the best member of your family possible. We actually, it was just over a year ago, right before I found out we were pregnant. Well, I was pregnant. My husband was not. I was pregnant. That was something I was very clear about when I was pregnant. I'm the pregnant one, you are not. You did your job though. But anyways, so when we found out I was pregnant, we actually had money down on a puppy because we were gonna get a poodle a year ago. I had already, gone out to see it and everything, and we ended up losing the deposit money because we found out I was pregnant. So we're like, well, we really don't have the time and energy right now, because I did get incredibly sick, and I knew I could not take care of that puppy and give it the love and attention that it deserved and needed to become, a beautiful, functioning member of society. So, and then we waited and we got Arulin, and now is like the perfect time. Our baby's old enough that she's now on a set schedule. So when we do bring little Arulin home, we have like good chunks of the time. We can kind of swap them out when they're napping and when they're playing. So that will be really good. And then when we bring Arulin home from my work, she'll be about 6 months. So things will be a little better. She'll be more like an adult dog at that point. So yeah, make sure that you are ready when you are bringing your dog home, and life circumstances too. You also want to make sure a part of that is that you're getting a puppy that suits your lifestyle needs. I know everybody wants the cute fluffy doodles, or a lot of people want the cute fluffy doodles, but those dogs require a lot of time and attention when it comes to grooming and training, because most of those breeds are 2 working breeds that have been bred into one dog, and they have a ton of energy, and so you have to put a lot of time and effort into training specifically, and then also exercising them, and then also grooming, because their doodle coats are a beast of their own, and they do take a lot of time. So if you do not have like hours and hours, especially at the beginning, to spend on training and exercising your doodle puppy, maybe get something that's more like a lab, where you still have to obviously put in time and effort into training it, but labs are smart. They figure stuff out. They socialize very easily, and you don't have a lot of time and attention that has to go into grooming them. If you don't have a ton of time to put into training, maybe get a poodle instead if you want a fluffy dog. Groomers can still make poodles look like doodles. The teddy bear cut is actually also a poodle specific breed cut, believe it or not. And so if you want a smarter dog that is just gonna still look fluffy and cute, that's definitely another road you can go down. So make sure you do your research on what breed you want. One other thing that when it comes to puppies that you need to be ready for when you bring your puppy home is shots and spaying and neutering. First of all, shots, and these are two things I think they need to be factored into the price that you are like originally budgeting out or paying for your dog, because these two things have to be done no matter what. And the spaying and neutering, I will say, unless they are like you are an ethical breeder or you are trying to be an ethical breeder. We'll get into that a little bit later. But other than that, I think every single dog should be spayed and neutered. There's no reason for you not to. But puppy shots. So puppy shots are like baby shots, I have learned, because now we're doing both. There's 3 rounds. 3 rounds of baby shots for their first, series, and 3 rounds of puppy shots for their first series. This round of shots is extremely important because it protects your puppy from things like distemper, and the big one is the paravirus, or you'll hear it just called parvo. It is a disease, essentially. It's basically like RSV in babies, where it makes them, vomit and have diarrhea until they are dehydrated, and then they can die. And if they get it, it is extremely expensive to treat in your veterinary clinic. It is much cheaper to vaccinate them. So make sure you vaccinate your dog. Usually if you're getting from an ethical breeder, they will have already given the first round of puppy shots. And then if they, if it's an older puppy and it's like the last of the litter, they may have given the second round already too. So that just leaves one more for you to get from your vet. But you need to make sure you're getting these shots to protect your puppy. So that is something, the cost that you should factor in. You can always call your vet, or the vet that you would like to take your puppy to, and get a price quote beforehand. That way, you're not surprised at the end by, a $200 bill. At our vet before, because I get a nice discount because I work as a dog groomer at, it's like we partner with this vet to drive business up both ways. But I got, before my discount for Arulin's second round of shots, it was almost $200, I will say. And then it ended up being a lot less because of our discount. So you just want to, again, budget that out, because that second round of shots usually comes pretty quick after you pick your puppy up. It needs to be done usually between 10 and 12 weeks. Because the first one's done 6 to 8. They're every 3 to 4 weeks generally is the puppy shots. And then the last round of puppy shots, if you get them done between 14 and 16 weeks, your puppy will also get the rabies vaccine, which is required by law. So make sure that you get that one as well. That one generally will be a cheaper visit, but again, you can still ask your vet for a quote beforehand. So make sure you are vaccinating your puppies. The other thing too is if you plan on boarding your dog, which means if you are going on vacation and ever in like the 15 years that you're going to have this dog, and you need to book them to stay somewhere because you cannot take them on vacation with you, you need to make sure that they are vaccinated, because I think it's, at least here, I believe it's required by law, again, that puppies have to have certain vaccines. I know in Colorado, at least, all the boarding facilities that I looked at and we took our girls to over our time there, they required quite a few. They required the DHLPP, which also it's like D2 LPP, I think, too. It depends on which version you get. But that's the parvo one that they get when they're a puppy. And then Bordetella is another one, and then the rabies, those 3 at least. And then sometimes they also require the canine flu shot. My work requires the canine flu shot, so you want to make sure that they're getting that one as well. But if you're ever doing that, that's another reason why you need to get your puppies vaccinated, so that you can go on your fun vacation to Disneyland, because Disneyland doesn't allow dogs unless they're a service dog. Okay, spaying and neutering. We'll get on to that now. So spaying and neutering is another cost that you need to factor into your budget when looking for a puppy. I did some digging around here in Utah because as we were getting a puppy, we needed to know how much we needed to, again, to budget out to spay and neuter her eventually. Most vets do it for a pretty steep price. Around here, it was between $600 and $800, depending on the size of the dog. That's a lot of money. Not a lot of people can just, whip that out and give that to a vet. So again, make sure you're budgeting this in. However, here in Salt Lake City, there is an awesome clinic in downtown Salt Lake City, and all they basically do is spay and neuter dogs. They also now do like vaccines and stuff and microchipping. But I called for our standard poodle. They said it was going to be $180 for the quote. So that is a third of the price that it would be to take her to our vet. So that is another option. You don't have to take them to like your own vet to get spayed and neutered. You can look to see if there are clinics. I know a lot of shelters also do spay and neuter clinics for some less, for less expensive prices, because it is very important to get that done. Spaying and neutering. The pros. You don't have to deal with puppy periods if you have a girl, and you don't have to deal with humping and all the, bad destructive behavior, marking territory that comes with your boy dogs. And you don't have to deal with their bodily fluids as well. So that is a big plus. Another huge plus is, and I have seen this 100% in my 3 years of experience, dogs that still have their balls attached. And sorry, we're using grooming talk now. Dogs that have balls, they are so much worse, and they are more aggressive. They are more sensitive, especially when it comes to touching their front paws. I don't know what it is but the front paws, and then obviously their butt area, which is already a sensitive area, and then it's even more sensitive because they have the family jewels dangling back there. They have a higher risk for getting nicked by our clippers because you can't stretch that skin. You have to kind of just, work your way around and do what you can, but because you can't stretch the skin, there's a higher risk for nicking the area. I have never done that, luckily, but I know a lot of groomers that have. And they're just worse dogs. So just spay and neuter. I know that there's like this weird thing where people, specifically men, think that if they neuter their dog that they're going to be less of a man. That is not, your dog does not care. Your dog will be better off. It'll be more trainable, it'll be more friendly and social, and you will just have a better time. There'll be less cleanup around the house, I promise. It'll just be a better dog. So please spay and neuter your dogs. And then also, you don't have to worry about possibly, having your dog impregnate or get pregnant. So yeah, and then your dog can always play at daycare as well. If you have especially a girl dog that is in heat, they're not allowed at a boarding facility because the risk of getting pregnant, the boarding facility doesn't want to deal with that. So yeah, and then generally, at least in our group chat at work, if dogs are, humping and doing the fun things, the boy dogs are doing this, they get put in timeout or they get put in their kennel instead of playing. And so if you want your dog to have the best, if you want your dog to have the best like social experience at boarding as well and daycare, make sure you spay and neuter your dogs. Yeah, that's my little spiel on that. Okay, lastly, this is lastly before we get into grooming. Well, I guess, no, we don't need to. I won't go into a list of what you need to get for a puppy. You can look that up online. But anyways, we're going to go into ethical breeding versus adopting. For those of you that don't know, I am a vegan, actually. So I am all animal rights. I was very much so, especially when every vegan goes through a phase. I've been a vegan for almost 10 years now, actually. So we have weaned off of that quite a while ago. But for the longest time, up until really I became a dog groomer, I was 100% pro adopting. I mean, both of our girls are adopted and we love them to death. But until I became a dog groomer, I didn't really understand what ethical breeding is versus backyard breeding. And And I think that each has its place and each is good. So there are reasons and good reasons for you to go to an ethical breeder and get a like purebred dog that is right for your family. And the reason for this is if you get a purebred dog from an ethical breeder, you know what you are getting. Like if you get a poodle, you know it's going to require a lot of grooming, but it's going to be really smart and trainable, and it could be a service dog. If you get a lab, you know that they're going to most likely love the water and they're going to want to play fetch for hours. They're going to be little goofballs and they're not going to have a lot of grooming. If you get a Bernese Mountain Dog, you know that you're going to live in a pile of dog hair, but you're going to have a fun, goofy, active dog that's going to be able to go hiking with you all the time. I do think, though, that if you are looking for a dog breed, you should always look at rehoming and adoption websites first. There are a lot of great rehoming websites. I think actually the best one is called Rehome, if I remember right, where you can look at pet owners that are like they are looking to give their dog a new home because they can't care for it or can't move with it for one reason or another. Most of the time it seems like it's due to moving issues, but sometimes it is just they can't take care of the dog anymore. And sometimes too, a shelter might have, but at the time you're looking to get a dog, they might have the exact breed you're looking for, or a mix that behaves very much like that. And so always look at rehoming and adoption first, and then go on to looking for ethical breeders. What do I mean by ethical breeders? This does not necessarily mean that they have to be like a championship line, but most of them have some sort of championship line or are working towards having, some sort of winning dog in their circle because they can charge more. It's part of the, part of the job and the credentials. But they usually have been doing it for a long time. They usually breed only purebreds. Sometimes they'll do doodles. I know the poodle owners sometimes do because they can get a pretty penny for doodles these days, but most of them will stick with purebreds, and they usually only do like 2 to 3 breeds at most. Usually they have fallen in love with the breed and want to help preserve it, and that's why they are ethically breeding. They'll only do a couple litters a year. They don't overwork their dogs. They still see the dogs as a part of their family. Most of these ethical breeders too, they're listed on sites such as AKC Marketplace. They have like a little thing where they can register as an ethical breeder. They do, I remember right, for certain credentials, it's like grooming. They have to take and pass courses that also have to do with breeding dogs, which is kind of cool that they have that. Another place you can find them is Good Dog is the name of the website. They have a lot of ethical breeders on there as well, and all sorts of dog breeds, whatever one you can imagine on there. Most of them too will give your puppy their first round of shots and deworm them, and they will show update photos all along the way. They are not afraid to like hide any information about their puppies because they do want you to have the best dog possible. They believe that these dogs are still a part of their family. They believe that even though they are like letting you buy the dog and adopt it not adopt it, but bring the puppy into your family, they still have responsibility for the life of that dog. So if for some reason you can't rehome the dog and you can't take care of it, usually in their contracts they'll have a clause about that they can take the dog back for whatever reason, as long as it's like a good one. Obviously, if you're just like, it's too much work and you don't want to put in the time and effort, they're going to try to help you through it. Usually too, they'll stay in contact with you after you have the dog or get the puppy to make sure everything's going well and it's adjusting well and give any tips and tricks if needed. They also welcome you into their home to meet the dogs and see where they've been living and growing up. And usually they do know a lot about the breed and can answer any questions that you might have. So yeah, those are some ethical breeders. Most of them, they do, and this is like the hard part because backyard breeders and ethical breeders, they might look the same, like if you just look at their houses or whatever, but backyard breeders, usually they have like one dog and they go to the dog park and oopsies, it gets pregnant. Or it's your friend that doesn't have credentials that wants to make a quick buck. So they get their dog pregnant. Or they have a stud and they will, sell the stud to go impregnate another dog. We don't like either of those things. We want good ethical breeders. But ethical breeders, they usually have like a contract. They do usually charge a good chunk of money, but that is because you are getting a lot. They do also usually have a health guarantee of their dog as well, and if they don't pass a check by your vet, then they will give you a new puppy. They'll trade it out essentially. They want to make sure that you as a dog owner have the best experience possible, which I love, and I think that's perfect. They want to make sure too that their dog is going into a good home. Usually they will also have just like many shelters, they will have a application, and sometimes even a wait list. You might have to wait for a little bit if they are a highly requested breeder. Yeah, backyard breeders and puppy mills and all those not good things or accidental pregnancies of dogs, we do not very much like. For instance, if your neighbor or your friend has their dog just get pregnant, they're like, hey, I have a free puppy, you want one? That's probably not where you want your puppy from. You don't know the health history of their parents. You don't know like if this dog is going to have issues down the line. And not that like mixed dogs are an issue, but you don't know the temperament necessarily of that dog. And when picking a puppy, especially when they're tiny, sometimes it is hard to know the exact temperament of what they'll be like when they're older, especially if they are a mix. So it is kind of hit or miss with those. Obviously we still want those dogs to have good homes because they are still, animals that came into this world, but if you just want to be a little more careful with those and don't like pay or support those if possible. Yeah, that is one reason too why we are having such a huge adoption crisis, especially you'll see too. So I guess we can go on to adopting now that we've talked about puppy mills and backyard breeders versus ethical breeders. But adoption, obviously it's from a shelter or a sanctuary, some people are calling them now. But we got both of our girls through adoption agencies. Chani, we believe, came from a high kill shelter in New Mexico, and it was a Colorado adoption agency that rescued her from the high kill shelter and brought her up here. Well, not up here, across the Rockies to Colorado, where we then met her and bought her. And then BB, it was from the Denver Animal Shelter in Colorado. Again, they will have applications. They want to make sure that the dog stays with you long term. They do not want the dog back at their shelter. One, because they want the dog to have a good home, but two, because there are a lot of dogs that are kind of almost on a wait list to get into the shelter now. It is really sad. If you are looking to adopt, the best time to go look at the shelters and adopt is generally between March and May, April, beginning of summer, end of spring. And this is really sad, but the reason for this is because a lot of families will get puppies for Christmas or Christmas time, and then the puppy grows up, and when it's you usually get a puppy when it's 2 months. If you get it before 2 months, bad breeder, don't get from them. You want it to be at least 8 weeks old. But anyways, they have it for a couple months and they realize this is a lot more work than expected and we have to have this for 15 years. And it's really sad because they're right at that cusp when the puppy gets from being a toddler to when they're a little bit better and they're a little kid, where you can teach them and they're still cool and whatever, but they still have fun, playful energy. But they're we don't want this anymore, and so they give it to the animal shelter. And it's really sad. So, but the good thing is if you're looking to adopt around that time, generally you will find a larger selection, and a lot of them will be younger. Sometimes and a lot of times you'll even find puppies, and again, they're around that 4 to 6 month age, which is a perfect time to adopt them, because they still have some of that puppy energy, but they're at the point where they are more teachable, and they can learn easier. And So again, very sad that that's the reason why there are a lot of puppies around in shelters around that time. But then if you are looking, it is kind of a plus. Also, shelters around this time a lot of times will waive fees or do discounts because they are at capacity and they want to be able to adopt these dogs out. Shelters will also have a adoption. They'll have a fee, but it's a lot less, like a ton less than getting from a breeder. So if your budget is a little tighter, maybe start looking there as well. If you are looking for something more like a lab or a lab mix, or just a cute furry friend to have that isn't going to be high maintenance, a lot of the breeds that you do find at shelters do fit those requirements. And a lot of the times too, they will do by a lot of the times, I mean usually always, shelters will do they'll have you meet the dog first to make sure that you guys get along. If you have any pets or children, they'll want the dog to meet them as well to make sure, again, they're getting along and they're showing signs that they will get along in the future. And yeah, and when you do those meet and greets, you do want to obviously you want to play with the puppy and make sure and the dog and make sure that they're a good fit. But you can also take that time to look at their temperament and body language and all that and see what it tells you about the dog's behavior and like temperament and personality to see if it fits kind of more of like what you're looking for. Yeah, and a lot of dogs will be very excited to meet people, especially in that situation, but some dogs might be a little more timid, and just be prepared for that. That is the case. BB, like I said, when we met her, she was very, very, very excited to meet me. And then when we brought her to see Chani and my husband, she like sniffed Chani, and then she kind of just went and did her own thing, which they said was a good sign, and they haven't, killed each other yet, even though they like to play fight. I'm kidding. They're the best friends. They love each other so much. But when it was just me and her, all she wanted was love and attention, and that was it. And she still is that way today. But Chani, when we went and met her, she was a little more, aloof. She doesn't love people and attention unless she wants it, and that is kind of more of a lab quality and a lab trait, as they are a little more goofy and aloof. But when she wants it, she loves to cuddle, and so like she went up to my husband and put her head on his leg and just looked up at him, and that's when my husband was sold on the idea of having a dog. Thank goodness she did her part. But yeah, so you can see a little bit more about the dog's temperament and personality through how they interact with you, which is, it's good. You want that. Especially if they are a mixed breed and you don't really know how their personality or temperament is going to be 100% when they're older. Okay, that is all about the kind of before you get a puppy side and what to look for. Now we're going to go into grooming. So grooming puppies is a whole different ballpark than grooming adult dogs. And the reason is because puppies are still learning. You think about like a kid, when you sit them down for their first haircut, they're probably looking around, they want to know what the scissors are and the clippers and what's going on. It's a lot like that, except you can't clearly communicate to a puppy, especially to a lot of puppies don't know like basic commands, especially if they're really young. They might know the word no or or whatever, but if you tell them to sit, they might not have mastered that command yet, or if you tell them to stand or be still or stay, like they might not know those commands yet. And different families do use different words and commands and phrases for like the basic puppy commands, and so it is very hard to groom a puppy. Most places will have a puppy fee. Mine generally is $15 unless it has extreme puppy energy, then I'll do $20. And it is just because puppies require more time and patience, and you have to go a lot slower, even though you want to go quickly. Because puppies, like I said, they have small bladders. You want to keep them there only a very short amount of time. And Yeah, but you do want to like go slow and make sure they're okay with everything. So, grooming a puppy. You do not want to look on Instagram. Well, okay, you do want to like have your dream haircut of what you want to work towards, and you can give that to the groomer. But you do not want to go into your puppy's first couple of grooming appointments with the expectation that they are going to look like the adult Instagram dog that you see on your feed or on what's it called? Or on Pinterest. That's what I was looking for. BB, I need you to lay down. Can you lay down? Or sit? That works too. But anyways, and again, the reason is because your dog is learning. This is a new skill for them. They have to learn how to be still when there's something vibrating on their back, which is the clippers, or they have to learn that, you know, a sound, the scissors by their ear, they don't need to like turn and look at it and try to lick it because that's bad if they lick the scissors. And if they move when you're scissoring their ear, you might chop their ear. You won't actually. That's a joke. But you could. Like, it is a thing. And so that's, again, why puppies, they do have usually a grooming fee associated with them. It's because you do have to be a lot more, like, attentive and patient and just put more time and effort into grooming the puppy. Another thing is you do want to slowly adjust the puppy to grooming. With Arulin, I've been able to very slowly introduce her to grooming. The first time we just did a bath and a blow dry. I didn't even brush her. I know, bad on me as a pet parent. But we did her nails and then just a really easy and fast clean face because she needed to get used to the clippers on her muzzle. Second grooming, again, bath and blow dry. And then we did clean feet as well, and she did really good. It was a very slow process at first because she didn't, you know, want me touching her paws and spreading them and all that. But once she figured it out, she was golden. And then the next one, I believe, was just bath and a brush because she had many accidents. She rolled in, and so we had to clean her up. And finally, the last one that I was able to do yesterday was a bath, blow dry, and a brush. And then we did a little more intensive clean face, which she struggled with a little bit more. She's a little bit older and used to the grooming environment now. So she's trying to figure more things out, I guess. But again, once she figured it out and she realized that it was okay, she did great. And then we did just a quick we did 2 pigtails. I can put a picture up here probably, so that she can finally see, because her top knot was falling into her face and I don't want to cut it yet. I want it to be very big and beautiful. So, yeah, but she, again, once she figured out what the brush was and what the clippers were, she did great, but it took a little bit of time to adjust her to that and to get her used to that. There is actually a reason why the poodle has its own breed standard puppy cut, and that is because before you do the very time-intensive continental cut or English saddle or whatever, you know, version of a breed standard cut you're doing, the puppy cut is designed to get them used to clippers and scissors and standing for long periods of time and the clean feet and face and the tail band and like all these different things before you do the more time intensive and clipper intensive continental cut. Yeah, and so that is like a more intensive version of very slowly introducing your dog to grooming. But for you guys and people at home with a puppy, you should go into your first grooming appointment, and it should be a bath and a brush and a face trim at most. You do not want to bring your puppy and throw them into the salon environment and expect a full groom to be done and for them to look, you know, totally Instagram ready. They'll still look adorable and super cute and fluffy, and a good bath and brush and blow dry does amazing wonders. I could put Arulin's before and after shots up here of what she looked like before and after her bath. But you do not want to, you know, put your puppy into this environment and expect them to have a perfectly, you know, full groomed haircut and everything. So bath, brush, and face trim. If your dog doesn't need a face trim, I would suggest a butt trim instead. That way, again, they get used to those scissors and they hear a little bit of that scissoring going on. And the reason why it's a face trim instead of a full body trim is they will get used to the clippers on their pot in their sanitary area for the bath. If you don't know if your grooming salon includes that, I would ask to add that on. Generally, they'll add that on and just charge a like scissoring fee. I charge $10 extra to do that, so not, an outrageous amount of money. And then face trim, they're getting used to the scissors, especially right here in the bridge of their nose next to their eye, and in front of their eye doing the visor. And then a lot of times groomers with puppies will do a little bit of shaping on the face. We don't want to do a ton because sometimes if you take too much off, if you do take too much off, it looks really weird, especially if the back of the coat is like longer and fluffier than the face. But a lot of times they will do a little more scissoring around the face than a typical face trim, just to get them used to hearing the sounds of the scissors all around their face, because they do have to get used to that. And then the second groom, I would suggest doing a full cut at that point. If they have done good and your groomer said that they did good, then I would recommend doing the full cut. Again, you do not want to expect it to look 100% perfect. The groomer is going to do a great job still and make sure that your puppy doesn't come out ugly unless it is a safety concern. And again, like a safety concern for me is I was clippering and they're trying to, turn around and bite the clippers and they will not stay still. Or you put them into the groomer's helper because they're doing that and they start alligator rolling. That's a no-no. You don't want that. That is a safety concern. Or you're scissoring around their face and they keep trying to bite the scissors and the groomer and they won't stay still. Those things are the big safety concerns, as if it's putting the dog in a place where it's going to danger itself, or where it could very easily harm itself, such as biting the scissors or the clippers. We do not want that. But other than that, the groomer should come out with a full haircut. Again, it may not be 100% perfect, because it is still a puppy, it's still learning, but they will come out still looking extremely cute. It's very hard to mess up a puppy groom, I will say. So yes, that is kind of what to expect for your puppy's first couple of grooms. If you have a dog that needs de-shedding in the future, such as a double-coated dog, you would want to add that on to start to get them used to that brush. I would do that on their second grooming appointment. That way they kind of already know the salon environment and all that. One other thing that is going to help your puppy transition and learn the grooming and salon environment better is to stick with the same groomer. If you're going to a place with multiple groomers, make sure that you request the same groomer, especially if you do like them, because then your puppy, it's a familiar face and a familiar like start to finish routine. Every groomer has a slightly different routine that they do. And if you get the same one, your puppy will learn what to expect and what goes on and, what happens after. Say, okay, Mary bathes the dog and then she dries them and then she brushes them and then she de-sheds and, step by step by step, instead of, oh, maybe my partner Max, I don't know his routine, but let's say he bathes the dog and then dries them and then de-sheds them and then brushes them, and, he does it in a slightly different order. But it will make your dog, they'll know what to expect one step after another, and it does make it a little bit easier when they understand that. The last thing we're going to go over is the puppy coat. It's so much fun. So for all of you that don't know, every puppy sheds at one point. And what this is when your puppy is born, they do have a very soft and fluffy and beautiful coat. It is a lot finer fur than their adult coat, and it makes them just so adorable and soft and cuddly. When they reach usually it starts at about 8 months. I have seen it as early as 6 months, but generally it's around 8 months to a year. Your dog will shed their puppy coat and their adult coat will grow in. Obviously, this won't all happen at once. They're not gonna be bald overnight and then have to grow their whole coat back. It happens, one hair follicle at a time, and so that's why it does take a while. So the bright side is you may not notice it, it might be in patches here and there, but you won't overall totally notice it, overnight change or whatever. But there will be a change in your puppy's coat. It will get a little bit thicker and more wiry in texture generally. There are certain breeds like poodles and Bichons that it will still stay nice and fluffy and soft, but it will be a little more wiry and hard in texture. That's like the best way to put it. But during this time, you need to be brushing your dog no matter, well, unless it's a short-coated dog. And by short coat, I mean like a lab or a French bulldog. Even if you have a double-coated dog, you need to be brushing your dog every single day during this time. I have seen all sorts of breeds and puppies get mats and compaction if you're a double-coated breed, but specifically get really bad matting because they were not brushing the puppy coat out. And most pet parents don't know that this happens and don't know that they need to brush their dog during this. So if I do have a young puppy, I will tell the pet parent immediately, hey, I know that it's a ways down the road, your puppy's only like 4 months old, but in a few months you need to be brushing them daily, so they don't get matted, especially if it is a doodle or a poodle, because it will get matted. There have been many clients that were like, oh, I was brushing my dog like, a couple times a week and for like 20 minutes, but it still gets matted. And again, that's because you do need to be brushing your dog daily when it is shedding its puppy coat. The reason it gets matted so easily is, well, one, your puppy's still a puppy. They're running around, high energy. They're probably rolling all over the floor. And so the hair is getting tangled a lot easier. Most puppies too, they don't do too super well with brushing, especially if you haven't been doing it regularly. And so it might just be one pet parent's brushing is they brush the back and maybe a little bit of the face, and then the puppy is done and they let it go. So the legs get super matted and the belly. But the biggest reason is because the fine puppy coat, it tangles really easily with the coarser, a little more harsh, wiry textured adult coat when it sheds. And so you need to be brushing so that you are pulling and getting that puppy coat out before it has the chance to tangle with the adult coat. Especially if you are looking to keep it long. If you do not have the time to brush your puppy daily, most grooming salons do offer walk-in brushing services. I would call your groomer to see if they do offer that. And then also I would call to make sure that there is a groomer there. Sometimes groomers leave early in the day if they are finished with their work. So just make sure if you're coming, especially later on in the day, that there is somebody there before you make the trek with your dog. If that is not financially feasible for you, though, to do the brushing services, I would do it once a week with a puppy. Then I would recommend shaving the coat down a little bit shorter. Generally with puppies, I will do about a 1/2 inch. Still leaves the coat looking fluffier for most doodle breeds. And if you want, you can opt for longer legs. We will go over a couple different doodle haircuts, or poodle haircuts, whatever you want to call them, on how to keep your dog looking longer, without all of the maintenance required for a very long and full haircut at home, in 2 weeks episode when we do curly coats. But anyways, there are different ways and haircuts around that, so you can talk to your groomer about that. But generally, if the pet parent is like, I can't brush at home and I don't want to bring them in for brushing, I recommend doing a 1/2 inch if they want it fluffy, and like a 5 blade if they want it shorter. A 5 blade, for those of you that don't know, is about a 1/4 inch of length, and that's the length it leaves on the dog. It is pretty short, but is the longer of the shorter lengths, I will say. And then the 1/2 inch is generally, if you go to a fancy salon, like a really fancy bougie private salon, 1/2 inch is generally the shortest length they like to do on doodles. It's like the there's no breed standard for doodles because they're not an actual like AKC breed, but it's the breed standard for the like shortest length of a puppy teddy bear cut, essentially. And so it still will leave your dog looking fluffy, but not require like hours upon hours of brushing at home. Yeah, okay, I think that's everything. Sorry, I have my my little list of everything I wanted to talk about. Since last time I feel like it was a little rambly, but we're gonna get better at this as we keep going. But yeah, that is it for today's episode. I hope that you enjoyed talking all about puppies and what to expect, how to be ready for them, some of the big kind of financial things that a lot of owners don't take into consideration, and then how to find a good place to find your puppy or your new dog in addition to your house. And then also all the fun grooming stuff, which grooming is usually, I feel like it's the last item on the list when it comes to getting a puppy, because you are thinking about, its health and medical stuff, and then also all of the supplies and stuff you have to get. And so grooming a lot of times is put on the back burner. So hopefully that little segment about grooming at the end helps a lot of pet parents with their puppies kind of know a little bit more about what to expect with grooming a puppy. Yeah, that is it. And so we will see you in 2 weeks for our curly coat episode. That one, fingers crossed, we're able to film it at work with Irwin. I have kind of a weird work schedule because my husband has a weird work schedule for the next couple weeks, so we will see. But yeah, until then, stay safe, tell your dogs I said hello, and give them lots of puppy kisses for me. Bye-bye!